Solve this entire Reese Mogg problem now. He absolutely is breaking the law. It doesn't even the whole kind of Offcom thing, the whole sort of oh, it's on air or it's been broadcast or where's it been broadcast from or what type of program it is. That is actually completely and totally irrelevant. I've got the interpretation very, very clear now from the Representation of the People Act, the 1948 one. I think it is. It's really, really very clear. It does. You don't need that broadcasting clause, and the one for overseas is only because, I mean, people overseas can do whatever they want. They could all wear Reese Mogg t-shirts if they wanted to, and even sell them. But that's in America. You don't see that unless it is broadcast. And the thing is that the wording of it is that you cannot make use of any transmitter or equipment that is overseas as well, because you're using resources and amenities that were foreign. This is the thing with YouTube, if YouTube didn't have an office in England, how do you take them to court? It's very difficult to. I've done a subpoena to them, but we're very lucky they've got offices here. Otherwise, it would be difficult. Now, I think that the Tories actually know this, and I think they were putting a very big gamble with that advertisement of Rishi Sunak that was on at Christmas. So they know, I'm quite certain that they know this, and they're bluffing, they're blagging. It's one big bluff. And the whole setting up of Offcom and the rest of it is kind of like they don't really know what they're talking about. Even the select committee, the guy in the select committee that had Offcom in front of him, he is a journalist himself and a politician. So what's happening is that they've created this monster with YouTube, right? And I guess Facebook as well. And they've run into a bit of a problem. And there's that many general people now engaging in politics on there that isn't like controlled like the ITV and BBC, that they, rather than start controlling it straight away, and by the way, this has nothing to do with petitions to the government. Elections are different, because with petitions, you've got to try and use your own resources or sponsorship to try and get people to help you. But as soon as it's elections and government, it's all meant to be run and controlled fairly under certain regulations and rules to ensure fairness. Now, the Tories know, and I think they've known for a long time, but with the culture changing, they kind of really want to try and change everyone's attitude, and they're hoping to change the law. And I believe that you can't just change the law dramatically like that without changing people's attitude. So what they've done is, Mogg is the guinea pig. Mogg is kind of like the fall guy, and he knows that. And they've given him a lot of money to do it as well, massive amounts of money. So what he's doing is he is knowingly breaking the law and encouraging as well, inciting other people to do it in order to attempt to sell and spearhead a shift in attitude, and then they would quietly and conveniently likely change the law, but it hasn't been changed and it's illegal. And the problem is that there's an argument over parliamentary privilege as well, which comes into it. So he's banking on using his parliamentary privilege. Now, you can't use privilege in order to get out of answering questions if there's any election fraud or corruption. But you can get disqualified and banned from appearing in elections again, or being an MP again, or even lose your vote, your right to vote. But it is true that they might not be criminally prosecuted. So therefore, what Mogg is doing is that there's so many people kind of doing this politics thing affecting elections on there that they can't really control, or they haven't prioritised it with Mark Zuckerberg and Nick Clegg, that, it's almost like, if the whole place is on fire, then, Mogg might as well start joining in, and not only just joining in, actually championing in it. it's a little bit like with Extinction Rebellion. The more and more people start joining in and doing it, then it gives other people more confidence and courage. So he's basically spearheading and leading a media rebellion. And I think the name Reclaim the Media, I don't think it was viciously intended to break the law by Lawrence Fox, but they manipulate these people and the names in order to be an advantage to them, which is why he was on there anyway. They are claiming the media that what it is a primarily a conservative led campaign to claim complete and total political freedom on the media so they can dominate and rule it, and less Labour, because Starmer is, I'm not a fan of Starmer, but I give him due respect. He's not quite as reckless and openly irresponsible. He's not as anywhere near as maverick and irresponsible as the Tories, Boris Johnson with his newspaper columns. They're not. The Labour Party aren't as flamboyantly, blatantly defiant like Tory misbehaving schoolboys. It's the whole Johnson style. This is the Johnson style. You might not associate Mogg with Johnson as much, but believe me, this is the David Cameron, Boris Johnson style. This is absolute flamboyance and defiance, and even lying about it, knowing that they're doing it illegally and hoping that people are going to sell it, that they're on the sales pitch, and it is completely corrupt. You don't even need the broadcasting law. Offcom are working on this broadcasting law with all these rules and clauses for broadcasting. What type of program is it? Are you a member of the cabinet? Blah, blah, blah. That is a complete and total hoax and misleading scam, because it all falls under canvassing. It actually just comes under corrupt practices. It's standard, basic corrupt practices. Mogg is in the receipt of money from this broadcasting company. He's been paid a job on a program that he himself is obtaining an electoral advantage out of. Whether he may choose to run in the future. There's always that chance, and that is what it encompasses, leading into or out of elections as well. He's just engaging in illegal canvassing, and he's accepting monies for it as well. It's not paid for by his campaign. It's paid for by GB News. And it doesn't really matter whether it's in America or not. And the fact is that to add to it, the clause on broadcasting is making use of transmitters and equipment that are overseas. It doesn't matter where Mogg sat. He could be sat in a paddling pool, or he could be in the water. He could be sat in the North Sea or on a boat with, Atlantic 252. It doesn't matter. The fact is that they're making use of transmitters based in America. And if they're getting monetized by, I don't know if I can't remember if there are any adverts on GB News or not. I don't know if they're monetized or not, if it's completely privately sponsored, corporate sponsored. But the fact that if they were receiving monetization as well from the American company, then how can it not be? How can it not be using American transmitting equipment if you're monetized by YouTube? I don't think they are monetized by YouTube, but that just proves that it's coming from overseas. That's just to show where the transmitter's coming from, if you're getting paid by them as well. So the Offcom thing is actually a complete distraction from it and sideline. And I'm probably going to submit this to Offcom now, but their forms are rather rubbish, and they never get back to you. Blah blah blah. It's probably a job for the Privileges Committee, really. But I don't know what they can do other than advise him to come off there. But he's been getting paid a hell of a lot of money. I think that he should lose his vote. According to the Act, I think that he should lose his vote. He should never be allowed to vote ever again. He can never be an MP in Parliament or stand for any election in England. I think that he should be banned from politics, like what they've done to John Bercow. I mean, John Bercow has done less John Bercow has done less than Reese Mogg, and he's been banned from going in Parliament again. It's outlandish, and then he's encouraging other people, like, George Galloway has just become an MP now. There's a question whether or not his programme, he's getting monetised by YouTube. Although, actually, I don't know if there are adverts on there or not. There might not be. He probably likely is, but I can't remember. But he's not being paid by a big corporate company. He does have some sponsors on there on the programme, but it's not like that. They are giving money to the Workers' Party, and he is featuring them in his programme with GB News. What Mogg is doing is Mogg is working for GB News now. I'm glad Galloway's got elected to Parliament, but it definitely his programme has boosted his rank and ratings. There's no doubt about it. I don't know what we're going to do about this, because they really don't want to give in, and they've tied so many people into the web now. Lawrence Fox, Andrew Bridgen, Mogg, Galloway. Some of them are. I mean, some of these MPs, I don't even know who they are. Some of these MPs, I've never heard of them before. And David Davidson, they've been Barry Sheeman. He doesn't really touch anything like that. He doesn't really go anywhere near anything like that. Starmer, when you see him, it's always in the style and manner of as if he were sort of, either making an official speech at a box or appearing as a guest on a programme, like when he used to be growing up as a kid. You can't really knock Starmer, even though I completely, I'm opposed to Starmer vehemently. It's particularly in his human rights stuff, because he hasn't been doing us any favours or help. Labour always try to make out that they're this kind of like, impartiality, play by the book, take complaints very seriously. At least the facade of their conduct is more sensible, so to say, not the Johnson maverick, reckless, whatever he does in his newspaper column, dive into the depths or whatever. It's, but this is what the newspapers like: sensationalism. They like it when they misbehave, and then they've joined them. They become part of them now. Reese Mogg is part of that. So, in a way, Reese Mogg is almost like creation, isn't it? And Adam and God, the hand touching the hand. How can we prove that all the media are corrupt and they're influencing everything, and they're mocking us in the newspapers, and they're spying on us, and they're, affecting the country and preventing democracy from regaining control of the corporate entities? Well, it's Mogg. There he is, right in the den with them all, with the smut, with the Sun in the pages of the Sun newspaper, with Johnson smeared all over the newspapers with their flamboyant, maverick recklessness of politics. So I don't know what can be done about it, because if Offcom are scared of them, and then then the select committee call Offcom in, and they make it look like they're giving them a rollicking, but really they're going like, you are under our control, and there will be consequences, and the people aren't intellectually capable of taking action. Really, they get people in who have only got a certain personal capacity, so they can't actually act. So it's all under control. I mean, it's probably likely a job for the Privileges Committee, but really, I'd love to try and get it through the Judicial Conduct Investigations Office under Constitutional Reform Act, Section 5, Representation to the House of Commons, and get the Lady Chief Justice to take direct action through that act. But Mogg's not a judge, although if he was a chair of a committee, I've started to argue that chairs of committees they've got powers. If a committee is given powers like subpoena and summons, then the chair of the committee, you can argue it into judicial conduct, because it's operating like a court in uh, sort of. So, but Mogg just as a member, even if if you can prove that every single MP is got an appointment somehow like a judge, I mean, the judicial authority of the House of Lords, but then you've got certain, you've got Lords Spiritual, Lords Temporal, and you've got Privy Council, and you've got judicial functions. They've got committees in the House of Lords, but the House of Lords traditionally is meant to have a jurisdiction of appeal with audience of the House potentially, or can be dealt with by committee. But maybe since Tice said that Tice is not going to like this either, by the way. Since Tice said that the Commons are dealing with those postal workers' criminal matters and deciding what should be done about it before a resolution, that could potentially bring the whole House under the Judicial Conduct Investigations Office, even if they're not regarded as judges. If they're all voting on, if they all potentially can vote on a matter that is criminal, like the postal office workers' charges, then it could be. But the fact is that Offcom are meant to be dealing with matters and then engage in proceedings where necessary. But then again, if the Select Committee for Privileges and Offcom, which is meant to be non-government, non-departmental government public funded body, then you've got Canberra Privileges Committee can take action against Mogg, but also if Offcom can as well, then if there's two, there must be or could be more. So I like the thing with Offcom is it's naff when you submit the forms, and I've even spoken to them on the phone. They don't really seem competent enough. It's almost like a joke organisation set up like Advertising Standards Authority. Even possibly the Advertising Standards Authority, they don't deal with political matters, usually because political matters are exempt, but that's actually petitions that are, elections are under strict regulations, but it really, I like the Judicial Conduct Investigations Office website because it's more of a proper kind of like official, it's more of like a proper serious thing with evidence and so forth, and it's not like Offcom website. And as for emailing the Privileges Committee, you might as well get candy floss and go for a ride on a roller coaster and just laugh. I mean, because these MPs are the problem. I mean, we can't trust these MPs to resolve the problem themselves because they're not fit for purpose. The Prime Minister is going on these advertisements as well at Christmas, so they need. I don't know, but if the Lord Chief Justice is a judicial, well, if they're, put it this way. It doesn't matter whether you take it through Offcom or you take it through the Privileges Committee or you take it through whatever, it's going to end up in the, if you want something to be done about it, these matters have to end up in front of a court at some time or other, even if it's just him losing his vote, even if, because there's this matter with privilege. They take the privilege into account with all this as well. And actually, in election petition violations, they aren't allowed to use the privilege, it says, when they're answering questions, because otherwise they might have the privilege to not have to give documents or not have to answer questions. If they're immune from prosecution, then, they could just stand there and refuse to do anything, which is kind of like what they're doing in Parliament when we ask them to act for us, when we put petitions in, that they're just kind of using privilege and refusing to perform function, unless you want them to put their hand up and vote. Well, this is not even on behalf of us, just, they're meant to be selfless, but I can't see how they can do that. So I'm not too quite, it's all about raising awareness of it. I mean, the more and more people who start, but I don't think people want Mogg off. They like him. This is the point of it. He's selling himself. He's trying to be charismatic and sell his character and get people behind him. This is the corruption. This is the corrupt practice. and if he's not gaining it for himself, he's getting for the Conservative Party. They just got whooped by George Galloway, but yet then he's claiming that he likes Galloway, he supports him, but clearly not the Prime Minister. Well, put it this way, Reese, Mogg and the Prime Minister clearly aren't as much disagreement as for... I'd like to see Mogg leave the Conservative Party and stop turning up at national conservatism. That Scott Benton was meant to have left the party. Bridgen's not in there anymore. Jeremy Corbyn's done less, really, than Mogg. But Starmer threw him out of the party. Mogg is charming the nation, and he's breaking the law, and people are liking him for it. It's almost like the Tories' version of Stop ULEZ or Extinction Rebellion, basically. But just with more style and panache. They instead of having, they're all breaking the law and breaking the rules, like all of them, aren't they? But he's clearly a champion ahead of the snake, and all the time he's like, oh, no, I like Mr. Galloway, I like the Workers' Party. Well, in national conservatism, yes, I can see he's your role model. Yes, George Galloway, leader of the Workers' Party, one of Reese Mogg's favourite role models, just a person to have on the projector screen when they've got National Conservatism meeting next time. National Conservatism. I'm sure Mr. Galloway would like that. National Conservatism, hosted by Reese Mogg. And, he's my hero projected on the screen behind me. George Galloway, leader of the Workers' Party. Would you like to come to our AGM meeting and, cast a vote on some of the stocks and shares? Unfortunately, Galloway's socialist nature, his love of people and fame and talking to all these experts and so forth, has led him on the unwanted path. Otherwise, it would be a little bit like Starmer, less reckless in that area. Although Starmer is, more so reckless in his human rights. They've got problems. We've got problems, and unfortunately, even, Tice and so forth, they all want a piece of this new social media machine. I mean, Barry Sheeman's got a media centre, It's all about innovation technology, but the law's not up to scratch with it, and this is it. They're on the front line. And the definition... That definition in that 1948 Representation of the People Act, it clarifies why, for what reasons, and the circumstances. And then when you realise what the corrupt practice is, then it matters really not anything about the broadcast or where it's from. That just consolidates. It just widens. It doesn't actually. The broadcasting clauses are of less significance than the just standard corrupt practices of illegal canvassing are in effect. You don't need the broadcasting clause. He's receiving massive, ridiculous amounts of money, insulting amounts of money to the working man for gaining a political edge in his own personal popularity, and there's no other reason why he's on there other than if the fact that he's an elected MP, a Conservative one, with a certain particular character and charm, which is what he banks on for all his elections and his politics. And if he wasn't an MP, he wouldn't be on the programme. They wouldn't be interested in having him on there. Now, that's fact. Now, Offcom need to be either extremely severely retarded or ignorant to not know that is a absolute fact. It's not a philosophical question. What is the meaning of a flower? That it's a factual. It's a fact. Mogg is selected, and on GB News they were interested only in Mogg because of the fact he is a well-known member of Parliament and an influential person in politics, being an elected candidate in an election and potentially in another one, and currently obtaining favour in his own constituency for his current work. Now, if Offcom don't do something about it, then they will need to be action taken against them for professional negligence. And then, they won't just be up in front of the select committee. In fact, I've just realised now, it's just clicked now, I've just got it. It's actually that journalist. It's the guy in Professor Tim Wilson's video who's all into journalism. That guy who had Ofcom up in front of him, he's a chair of a committee in Parliament, like the Petitions Committee, which have already put complaints in. So I've just realised now it's just gone now. I've just clicked. I'm not going to complain actually against Mogg. So I've got it. I can get it into the Judicial Conduct Office now. I've just figured out how to do it. So I'm going to complain about the Select Committee chair who had Ofcom in front of him that was hearing the Mogg matter, because he was misleading people and lying to create a charade in front of the public with Ofcom in front of it. It's all that they're trying to deceive everyone about the actual true underlying law and principles in effect, and why that law is there, where it comes from, what it's based on, and all of the Ofcom tosh is just kind of like a leaflet of general advice in contrast to what is the actual law, function, and purpose. And the whole Ofcom website is, you might as well just, chuck paint on a wall. You might as well have a child's finger painting contest. What are the fingers that made the prints, right? What is the legislation where this is generated from? And you don't actually have the legislation of anything to do with radio waves required, because it's just straight out, blatant, standard, corrupt practice of politician. And, if you add on it being also added to that, making use of YouTube through a foreign transmitter, you can chuck that in as well. And then you can have adverts popping up from America on there. Let's say that they did monetize, push a button and monetize, and there's a couple of adverts popping up. How can YouTube control what adverts pop up on there? Riddle me this one then. Let's say that there's nothing wrong with what Mogg's doing. So okay, then let GB News monetize, and then we'll have random adverts popping up in between Reese Mogg. And then what's going to happen? What happens if it shows Central Park in New York and everyone's there with Reese Mogg t-shirts on, or eating Reese Mogg Reese peanut bars? Forming a big, all join hands and form a big picture of Reese Mogg, lay down flat on the floor like Neil Buchanan with a big t-shirt on, Mogg in between the adverts in between. That's in America, promoting Reese Mogg from abroad. Oh, look, they've got some adverts on now. I thought you said this broadcast and transmitter was coming from England. Everyone's in Central Park in America, forming a big picture of Reese Mogg's face. This is it. There's something wrong with these people, and if we can't get them in prison because of their privileges, then they need to be banned from politics. They need to be banned from standing in elections. They need to be banned from ever voting again. We don't want these people in government or near government, and these are what the punishments are for these type of things in these acts. It's not. They know they got privilege, all right, and the punishments for even members of the public are you lose your vote and so forth, invalidate votes and so forth. These corporate national conservatism, Rishi Sunak, Boris Johnson, the newspaper columnist, Mogg, these people are not fit for modern day politics. They're not trustworthy enough. They hijack our government, David Cameron. They strip and sell off the public resources and they steal them for themselves, and then they award themselves insane money. Well, Michael Gove is got the testicles to stand up in Parliament and gibbery jabber on about housing, we're going to solve the housing crisis. Like, play it again, Sam. Margaret Thatcher. 1973 session of Parliament number 7 on a Tuesday at 4:00. Press play. Got to solve the housing crisis and get people into houses. Play it again, Sam. This is it. How can Gove stand up? How can Gove appear in Parliament in front of the country and make a comment on housing of anyone when Mogg is receiving these amounts of monies on GB News for sat on a chair moving his mouth? How can Gove hold his head without shame of mankind? But yet they dare to do it. These people in law are not eligible to vote, let alone be elected. The law says they do not deserve the right to vote in England. They don't deserve the right to turn up in a polling station. And that is what David Cameron regarded criminals in prison. They don't have the right to vote. That is what David Cameron said. He doesn't think they have the right to vote. David Cameron has stolen our mail service. He has stolen it and robbed it like a thief, and now you can't even send a second-hand sweater for £3 to England for they're wanting £25 off you. There's something wrong with these people. They are not normal people. They're not normal. They're abnormal. They're not usual. They're unusual. Boris Johnson is not normal. He's abnormal. He's eccentric. He is ridiculous. These people are dangerous mavericks and they don't deserve the vote in England for any political decision or matter, let alone being elected to make them. And that is what the law says of these corrupt practice people. And if Offcom do not start getting them off, we've got a problem. And I will be putting this in against the chair of the select committee through judicial conduct investigations who sat in that Offcom hearing. And he will be responsible because he is known journalist himself. And he has been aiding and abetting by trying to deceive the public through broadcasts and make it look like it's all about what type of program it is. What type of program it is. Or if he's a member of the cabinet or not. Any person